Welcome to Madhouse, where we discuss all things movie and TV related. If that's something you're interested in, feel free to subscribe. If not, no worries, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. So if you clicked on this video, you probably consider yourself some kind of film buff, but have you seen these movies? Often when I tell people, yeah, I like movies, they ask me if I've seen The Matrix, The Dark Knight, Fight Club. And usually the answer is yes to these blockbuster or cult classics. But when I ask people if they've seen these movies, usually the answer is no. So if you like movies as much as I do, I'm curious if you've seen these movies, and if you haven't, I highly recommend them. The first movie I'm gonna go over is called True Story. I feel like this movie is incredibly underrated. I'm really into movies that are about true crime, have twists and turns, but also about storylines that haven't been played out a bunch of times before. I had never heard of Christian Longo or Michael Finkel before seeing this movie, so it was all new to me, and this film portrays that the truth is a messy subject. One pretty interesting thing about this movie is it's not a comedy whatsoever, but stars James Franco and Jonah Hill. I love the idea of typecasted actors stepping out of their box. James Franco started in Freaks and Geeks and has been in non-comedy roles before, like 127 Hours, but seeing the duo of Franco and Hill together on screen in serious roles is surprisingly refreshing. I think that they both give a great performance, and this movie had me on the edge of my seat. The story is, of course, well, a true story on Michael Finkel, played by Jonah Hill, an ex-journalist with a fresh stain on his record by playing fast and loose with some facts in his recent article at the New York Times. He plans to make a comeback by connecting with Christian Longo, played by James Franco, who is on trial for murdering his wife and 3 children. Longo is an interesting person and somewhat likable, which allows the two to build a genuine relationship while Finkel writes his book. They begin to build a symbiotic relationship where Finkel helps Longo become a better speaker/storyteller. The film ends with an emotional scene that leaves the audience questioning what is true and what is a lie, while also questioning the morals and ethics of both Longo and Finkel. The next movie we have is Raw. This movie is going to be tough to explain without giving away the twist and plot too much. This movie was recommended to me with little to no context, so I was left to discover the twist myself. What I can say is that it's about a vegetarian girl, which is important to note, that goes to a veterinarian school that her older sister also attends. In the beginning, she seems a bit quiet and doubtful of herself. As the film progresses, we see her juggling many relationships, including the relationship with herself, alongside her new diet. We soon discover that there's a freshman year rituals that all must attend. When the main character seeks out help or advice from her older sister, she's less than enthused or willing to ease her struggles through the freshman year hazing. At one point, she's forced by her sister even to eat a rabbit kidney regardless of her strict vegetarian diet. This is where we start to discover some freaky happenings. As the film unravels, you begin to have more questions and witness some extremely intense scenes, but not in the traditional sense of a thriller horror film. Also, just to clarify, the intense scenes are not related to the hazing. I'm not a huge fan of hazing type movies, so I would be pretty turned off by that myself, but it's not. So I should also note that this is a French film, so closed captions are necessary if you don't speak French, but I can promise it doesn't take away from any intensity of the film. And I even heard that some people couldn't handle the movie, so they left while the movie was still playing. So if that doesn't show you how intense this film is, I don't know. Next up, we have Coherence. Yes, this movie is low budget, $50,000 to be exact. So if this is something you can't get past, don't even bother watching, because then you'll probably think I'm not a credible source for movie recommendations, which I am. Just want to throw that out there and give you a forewarning. This is a low budget film in every sense of low budget film. This movie is mind-bending, and once you get into it, you have to figure out how it plays out. It's about a group of friends who have a dinner party when a mysterious comet flies over, and the group encounters a blackout, presumably caused by said mysterious comet, but things get even stranger. They start noticing weird consistencies when someone leaves the house and comes back. And they believe there's a group of doppelgangers running around, which obviously cannot be trusted. Later, they find their situation gets even worse, to which I say you have to watch the film to find out. Even with the low budget, the film has a 7.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb, and if you're interested in watching it, you can watch it on Hulu. Next, we have Chasing Amy. Similar to 500 Days of Summer, this is more of a not-so-love story. I'm not particularly into romantic movies, so I like the more not-so-love story rom-coms or romantic movies in general. They're usually a lot more raw and touch on realistic portrayals of how humans interact. In my opinion, what makes a good movie isn't necessarily great acting or great production value, but one that has honest moments that feel like interactions real people would have. This movie is pretty full of them. The main characters are in their 20s and begin with two best friends, Holden and Banky, who are comic book writers that live together. They come along an edgy girl, Alyssa, that sweeps Holden off his feet. Except there's one pretty big conflict. Alyssa is a lesbian. Of course, Holden continues to pursue her and more conflicts arise. The production value of this film is not necessarily the greatest, and I wouldn't even say that this is the best movie ever, but some scenes are powerful and emotionally moving that makes up for it. I also like that the plot is incredibly unique, which is hard to find, especially in a romantic movie. Next up, we have The Basketball Diaries. This movie is a better depiction on how drugs take a hold of your life, more than any Nancy Reagan War on Drugs PSA ever could. It will have you rooting for the main character regardless of his poor actions because you see how devastating his circumstances have become. After all, his drug addiction put him in the backseat of his own decision making. You want him to get his life together and see him turn things around. Leonardo DiCaprio plays the main character, Jim Carroll, and could not have been played better by any other actor. This role was perfectly suited for young Leo and feels like a privilege as an audience member to watch his performance throughout the film. Two of the most emotional scenes are when he begs his poor mother for money, which is obviously for drugs, and when he goes through heroin withdrawal after being rescued from a near-death experience. I first discovered this movie by randomly coming across the scene where he begs his mother for money, and that was enough for me to vigorously search for what movie this scene came from. I'll show you that now, and then you'll understand how raw and emotional this film is.
Mom, can you give me some money, please? Mom, can you give me some money, please? Stop fucking around! I can't. Mom, give me some fucking money, please! What are you doing? I'm your son! I don't have any. Mom, don't fuck around like this! Give me some money! Mom! Come on! Let me in the fucking door!
One more important thing to note is this movie is actually based on a true story from a book that Jim Carroll wrote about his own life. Of course, this makes the movie more emotional and more a reason to root for Jim Carroll's character. I haven't touched on the plot too much, but hopefully my enthusiasm for this movie is enough for you to give it a shot. Next up, we have Donnie Darko. This is one of my all-time favorite comfort movies. I would even argue that this movie contributed to my movie addiction in the first place. I first saw Donnie Darko when I was in high school and watched it probably every day for a month straight. The writing and acting is one in a million and touches on many different emotions. There are some seriously funny scenes that catch you off guard because it's not exactly a comedy, but that almost makes the scenes even funnier. It feels like Donnie, the main character, is searching for answers about life and what happens after we die, but simultaneously he discovers how a lot of people around him don't seem to care at all. He does eventually find a way to make connections with a few people that seem to understand his quest for knowledge. I think what is so great about this film is it incorporates perspectives of teens and adults. Now, in my young adult age, I get a different takeaway from this movie than when I was a teen. What I think makes the writing so great in this film is that there are a lot of lines that don't exactly move the plot of the film, but it allows the viewer to get a better understanding of the characters themselves. It's hard to balance because if you only have lines that move the plot, the movie comes across artificial and manufactured, but when you have too much non-related material, it almost takes away from the focus and seems pointless. This movie is the perfect example of character development that works really well for the plot and the audience. This also creates a lot of quotable moments. Just to quickly summarize the plot, Donnie Darko, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, has a form of schizophrenia where he sees visions of a man dressed up in a dark version of a bunny suit. The man in the bunny suit starts to make him question reality and manipulates Donnie to commit crimes that later reveal hidden secrets about the people in the town. He even survives a bizarre near-death experience by listening to this man in the bunny suit, which causes him to develop a trust for him. The main plot of the movie seems a bit weird, but the meaning of the movie goes beyond that, so it's well worth the watch if you've not seen it before. Leon: The Professional is not only jam-packed with action and violence, but it shows a beautiful, unexpected relationship between Leon, a hitman, and his 12-year-old neighbor, Matilda. Everything in this film comes together seamlessly, from the acting, the writing, and the producing. They used only a few set locations, but the execution of the movie shines through. Kind of shows as an example you don't need much to make a great film. There's not a lot of overly produced violence or bells and whistles. Just by watching it, you can see the heart of all the people that came together to create the film. As a movie enthusiast myself, it's very obvious when a movie, not to sound cheesy, is created with a lot of heart and it doesn't necessarily matter on the genre of the movie. You can just tell by how much thought gets put into each decision. Leon has few lines, but his facial expressions and body language communicate the affection he shows towards Matilda, which drives the story as you see him care for her like his own daughter. Based on the context clues given in the movie, he doesn't have a lot of family or friends and leads a simple life. He had no desire for money or a better lifestyle before Matilda came along. At the beginning of the film, we see Matilda doesn't have a lot of respect for others, especially adults, so it's a big deal to see her looking up to Leon. Matilda starts copying Leon and starts dressing like him, which young kids tend to do when they have a good relationship with a parent figure. When she slowly begins dressing like him as the movie progresses, it demonstrates how an eye for detail like that can say more than a script can. If you really like movies, even if you don't end up loving this movie, it's still a good one to watch to study filmmaking and different styles of writing and acting. Maybe it's just me, but it feels like movie and TV suggestions have been a little dry lately, and I haven't come across anything new to me lately that I've just really wanted to sink my teeth into. Hopefully I've been able to suggest at least one movie you haven't seen before, and I would love to hear your favorite movies that you feel like a lot of people haven't seen before. Well, that's all I have for now. It's been really fun making this video, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to support this new channel, liking, commenting, and subscribing would really help me out, and I would appreciate it so much. Alright, bye!